Welcome to everyone to Sea of Tranquility. I am Pete Pardo. We have arrived here at pick number 26 of my favorite 31 hard rock and metal albums of the 70s. We've got 31 days here in the month of July 2023. I am counting down my 31 favorite heavy albums of the 70s. I have set a limit for myself anyway. You guys can do whatever you like down in the comments below of a maximum of 2 albums from any one band, just to kind of eliminate the probability that my entire list of 31 would be taken up by like 4, 5, or 6 bands, right? Because it's very easy to do with a decade like the 70s where you have so many really great notable bands who released 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 really great albums in that entire decade that many of us love a lot, right? So not a lot of fun just to have a full list of like 5 or 6 bands, right? So we're trying to get as many good ones, as many great ones that I love in the list as well. So that's why I've done that little limitation. So today for pick number 26, we've got, this is the second album from this British band. Another British band, you might ask, or might say. Yes, indeed. This one came out in November of 1970, right at the beginning of the decade. Recorded at Morgan Studios in London, England. Produced by John Lodge. Released on Threshold Records. I am talking about Trapeze and the album Medusa. That's right. This is an album. It's funny, when I originally put my list together, I completely forgot about this record and didn't have it on my list. And then, I don't know, I was sitting there looking at my shelf the other day and I'm like, oh, holy cow, Medusa absolutely has to be in my top 31. How did I forget that? So I had to kind of like make a little switcheroo, which does happen. It happens throughout the month, right? It's something you forgot. You know, like, oh, how could I forget that? Can't forget it, right? Of course, this is the great, at the time, power trio. One of the great unsung early 70s power trios. Mel Galley on guitars and vocals. Glenn Hughes, bass, keyboards, and vocals. Dave Holland on drums. Of course, John Lodge from the Moody Blues, because of course this album was on Threshold Records, which is the record label started up by the Moody Blues. And, you know, of course, these 3 guys, you know, Glenn Hughes, of course, a couple years later goes on to Deep Purple. Mel Galley continues on with Trapeze for the rest of the decade into the early 80s, and then, of course, gets the call from David Coverdale to join Whitesnake. Dave Holland, of course, joins Judas Priest as we move into the 80s, right? So, you know, all 3 of these guys went on to do pretty big things right afterwards. And of course, Glenn and Mel worked together again in Phenomenon, that musical project, right? That Mel's brother started up. So yeah, so, you know, notable players here, a really notable album. And this comes on the heels of the first Trapeze album, which sounds nothing like this, which had like a larger ensemble of players. And then, funny enough, these 3 guys were left standing, and the first album was more kind of like the Moody Blues, kind of folky, symphonic rock type of thing, and just not at all like this. And then when it came down to the trio of these 3 guys, all of a sudden it became this kind of funky, heavy rock band, right? Of course, you know, you got Black Cloud opens up with great riffing on that song. That song is kind of Bad Company-ish before Bad Company even became a thing, right? It's just good riffing, good kind of bluesy, funky, heavy rock song. Then, of course, you got the crushing Jury, and Glenn's vocals so good on this album. He was so young here, too. Just still coming into his own. You got the upbeat, groove-laden Your Love Is All Right. Touch My Life, another really good song. You got the gorgeous Seaful, right? Gorgeous and heavy, and just, yeah, there's some great cranking, kind of doomy riffing going on throughout this album, which is just really, really excellent. Seaful, and Seaful's got a great snarling vocal from Glenn, but it's like one of those songs, it's like majestic, powerful, yet doomy and heavy. Excellent stuff. Makes You Want to Cry is up next, another good one here. And then, of course, we've got the snarling proto-metal Medusa, the title track, finishing off the album. Medusa is so good. What a riff in that song. Holy moly. Yeah, I mean, there's if you have never heard this album, just go check Jury, Seaful, Medusa right off the bat. Black Cloud's also really good. Those are my favorites on the album, but everything is really, really good on this album. Great vocals, catchy, memorable, heavy songs. Yeah, I always thought Trapeze were one of those bands that just never really got the acclaim they deserved, and I think were it not for Glenn being kind of scooped up to go and join Deep Purple, you have to wonder, because the follow-up album to this is almost as quite as good as this one. And then Glenn is gone, right? So they kind of carried on. And then, Mel's a really good singer too, right? So he took up the vocals on here. And eventually they got Peter Golby to sing. Peter Golby eventually wound up in Uriah Heep for the Abominog and Head First in the Equator albums, right? So Trapeze just kept kind of going along. And I think they were one of those bands that never quite caught on with the masses. A good kind of like support act and cranking out some really good albums, because even the albums after Glenn left are really, really strong. Just good. If you like groove laden heavy rock, I mean, it's what it's all about. Great riffs, great vocals, awesome stuff. Just highly underrated band. Trapeze, another one of those bands that just, maybe like say Nazareth and Thin Lizzy and UFO, these bands that kind of like were really good but just never made super stardom, maybe in certain markets, but on a mass scale worldwide just never really hit those highs of like the Purples and the Heaps and the Sabbaths and the Zeppelins and the Who and all those, that just never got there. Not even close, right? But this is a terrific album, and I think there is here we go. Just you can see all of them really, really young. Look at that. Cool stuff. Great album. Love it. Had to be on my list. Thankfully, I discovered just a couple days ago that somehow it was not on my list, right? As far as certifications and whatnot, this one did not certify anywhere. Not surprising, right? Because some of these albums, they're a little bit more obscure, right? This, again, this was a band that even though the album didn't really sell big or anything like that, they were doing lots of the touring, and they were a very, very active band at the time. And of course, hey, if you catch the attention of the guys in Purple, right, when they're looking to replace a couple slots in their band, right? Because, of course, Gillan and Glover left, and Glenn Hughes is the first guy that they saw. And originally, they were thinking he was going to sing and play bass, and not get another singer. But then eventually they felt they needed that kind of front man out there just doing the vocals. So they said, well, why don't we do like kind of have two singers in the band? Why not, right? But anyway, that's a story for another day, which we've told and we'll likely tell again. But today it's all about Medusa by the great Trapeze, one of the great, like I said, power trios of the 70s. If you've never heard it, go listen to it. Let us know what you think. If you've already know this album, give us your thoughts down below or in the chat, but as well as give us your pick for today. Pick number 26 as we count our way down to number 1. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below, we got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, as well as our merch page, where you can get all sorts of cool Sea Tranquility shirts like this awesome, I call this the Death Moth, right? Whatever you want to call it. This is what I call it. I have my names for all the shirts that we have available in the SOT store. So this is one of my favorites. I really like this one a lot. So that link is down below in the video description if you'd like to go peruse, see what we got, pick something up for yourself or for your friends or loved ones, and wear it out there in the wild. Spread the word of Sea of Tranquility, right? I hear all these stories of people saying, Pete, I have a couple of your shirts, and I go into the supermarket, I go into the drugstore or the department store, and I walk around and people look at me, that's a cool shirt, what the hell is Sea of Tranquility? Well, let me tell you. And then they tell them the story. I think one of the best stories I ever heard was with someone, I think in the UK, if I remember correctly. Someone wrote me a note saying that they were wearing one of the SOT shirts, I think the whale shirt or something like that. And they were in the supermarket and then looked down a couple lines at the checkout counter, and there was someone else wearing a different Sea of Tranquility shirt. It's the first time I've ever heard that. How cool is that? The two people in the same store in a big country who have never met before, both wearing Sea of Tranquility shirts. That's pretty cool. You don't often even see, how often you go into a store and maybe you're wearing a Metallica shirt, you see another person with a Metallica shirt. In this day and age, maybe not all that often. Maybe 30 years ago, that would be pretty common. So the fact that two people who don't know each other wearing SOT shirts in the same store, that's cool. Got to see more of that. So anyway, you can peruse our shirt list, and this, like I said, we got tons of them. Got a lot of the shows represented. We got Hudson Valley Square shirts, we got in the Prague Seat shirts, we've got metal shirts, we've got Prague shirts, we've got mixtape shirts, we've got Comic Book Geezers shirts from my sister channel, my other channel that I have, which, by the way, if you've never checked it out, please do. I do have another channel. It's called Comic Book Geezers, for those of you that love like comics from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, vintage stuff. It's a great fun show over there, just showing and talking about comic books and old classic stuff from Marvel and DC. So that's my other channel. Go over there, hit that subscribe button, help us out over there. And anyway, that's what we got. So see you tomorrow morning for pick number 25, and stay tuned tonight for the Monsters Den. Yes, we got the Monsters Den coming up tonight. Tomorrow morning we've got Friday Morning the Funhouse with Martin Popoff. We're going to be talking about pop rock. What is it, and what are some of the signature bands you should be checking out in this kind of weird style of music, right? And also we have the July episode of 4 Fusion Friday for all you folks who love fusion music. What is fusion music? Well, it's kind of like combines jazz and rock and prog into this instrumental mix of fiery music. We do that each and every month, the first Friday of every month, where we pick 4 albums that are kind of related by somewhat of a theme. We talk about them, we rank them, starring George LeMay and Eric Porter, and we have one special guest each and every month. So it's 4 of us, 4 albums, and a George's pick. We also have a George's pick as well, and George also will talk about some new releases that are coming out in the coming weeks or months or whatever. So it's a fun show, so check that out as well. We've got what else happening this weekend. We also have Ranking the Albums, very special episode coming up on Sunday. For those of you stoner rock and metal fans, we've got Jim Bakke and Craig Kaminsky joining me in the ranking room, and we are going to rank the albums of California's very own Fu Manchu, right? A dozen albums, cranking up the fuzz, fun catalog. We are going to rank those 12 albums on Sunday, so stay tuned for that. Join the 3 of us for that. That'll be very special. Until then, and we'll have other stuff happening as well. So I should hopefully have another episode of overlooked and underrated. Is that what I call it? Overlooked and underappreciated live albums, right? Yes, that's coming up. I always forget what the name of that. That should help. Hopefully have that coming up this weekend, as well as I am going to do a special show. I wanted to do in the beginning of July, kind of talking about the mid-year point in the year and what some of my favorite releases are so far here in 2023 at the mid-year point, right? We always do the year-end stuff. I think, was it last year? I think I did like a little mid-year update. I wanted to do that as well, just kind of give you an idea what I'm thinking, what some of my favorites are for the year. Because, of course, at the end of the year, I may look at this overall list and I'll pick, my top 30 or whatever it is that I usually do. I think last year I did my top 31 because I did like a whole countdown in December, my favorite 31 days of the month, my 31 favorite albums of the year. So, so I'll give you a little preview into kind of what I'm thinking at this point in time now. We're at the beginning of July. So, till then, I'm Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you real soon here. Bye-bye.